Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, I am Mariana and I interview the brightest minds of physical therapy. So if you want to increase your knowledge, start right now by subscribing to this channel, clicking on the bell so you don't miss anything, give us a thumbs up and share with your friends. Today, our guest is Efosa Guobadia, and he's going to talk about promoting wellness at scale and community health. Efosa is a physical therapist and the founder of Move Together and the co-founder of PT Day of Service. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hi Efosa, welcome to PT Pro Talk. How are you today?
I'm good and good. Hello, Mariana. Glad to be here with you.
Awesome. So let's start talking a little bit about yourself, your career, and how did you get to where you are right now?
Oh, that's a interesting and fun journey. A little bit about myself. My family's originally from Nigeria. So I was actually born there and then moved to New York when I was young. And then lived in New York City for some time, Brooklyn, New York. And then when I was about 10 years old, we moved out to the suburbs of New York, a place called Long Island. So grew up there. Played sports a ton growing up, football, wrestling. Wrestling may be the sport that I'm most natural at. And I also played a sport called lacrosse, which is very famous in parts of the United States. And then I went to the University of Massachusetts for a sports scholarship to play lacrosse. And that's when I fell in love. And I always knew I was going to be involved likely with healthcare. My mom's a nurse. I from a very young age, I certainly love people. I love health. I love science. I used to joke around. I think my first word was stethoscope. I think, who knows? My mom being a nurse. But then I studied kinesiology in undergrad at UMass, and kinesiology, the study of human movement, and some passions were being catalyzed around this idea of physical therapy and physiotherapy. Some of the different things I loved about the idea of kinesiology and physiotherapy specifically was the idea it's a profession and it's a realm in which we get to use our hands and our hearts and our words, to connect and to collaborate with others and to see transformation in real time, in the short and the long term. And I found that fascinating. I also loved what I call the lateral ability of the profession. Within 1 year or 1 month, 1 week, 1 day, you could be working in vastly different settings and with vastly different clients, with vastly different goals and hopes and situations. And that idea fascinated me much. So I set myself on the process to go to PT school. I went to a physio school in the University of Scranton in Pennsylvania. For any of you guys who watched the show The Office with Steve Carell, it's based out of Scranton, right? So that is a thing
cool.
that people often think about when I'd say I went there, and that was a great journey. Scranton, a unique thing that I found with that university is a Jesuit university, and the Jesuits are big on service and this idea of being men and women for others. And there's this idea and this quote that you'll see in most Jesuit universities is "Ite inflammate omnia." It means go set the world on fire, go set the world alight. And from the first moment I read those words and heard those words, something was catalyzed and sparked within me and sort of guided me to think about that and all the things I did in life, vocational, personal, adventure-wise, go set the world on fire, think about things in a global way. And I had tried to do that. Then I graduated from PT school, which was in 2010. Moved to Chicago for 4 years. Had some fun experiences there. I worked for a large company there, and early in my career, they allowed me, which I could go to more in detail, Mariana, per the interest in this. They allowed me to develop this global service initiative in which I'd work with different nonprofit organizations in different places with different missions around the world, which was great. And I learned a lot about, relatively to what I knew about community health and global health. And so worked for that company for some years. And then in 2014, I did a trip around the world, Mariana. I went to 22 countries in 8 months.
Oh, wow.
Which was...
That's awesome.
Yes, and I'll pause there. That brings me to 2014, 2015. Before I continue, if you have any questions about any of that stuff.
So that's so cool. You took how long was a break of A year or so, you said?
Almost a
You
year.
went to
8 months.
22 countries, so you were on the road.
Yeah, I was on the road. Yeah.
Nice. I bet you have had amazing experience during this time.
Amazing experiences, amazing connections. The countries that I went to give some context, and I knocked out a lot of that 22 in 5 weeks because I traveled around Europe in 5 weeks. So that's maybe 10 countries I went to there. But I started in Guatemala. So Guatemala, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Peru, Nigeria, Italy, Spain, France, England, Holland, Germany, Czech Republic, Austria, Hungary, Singapore, China, Japan, South Korea, Thailand, Indonesia, Australia, and then New Zealand, before stopping over in Hawaii for some beach time and some skydiving and things of that nature.
That's awesome. You're missing Brazil.
Yeah, I should have. If you should have told me, I wish we knew each other earlier, Marco.
That's cool. So do you feel like that experience helped you with your community health projects and the other projects that you did after that? Did it influence anything?
Yeah, very much so. It certainly did. While I was on the trip, the idea of that trip was to create this montage and mosaic of health and service and physical therapy in different communities around the world, to get an appreciation of our similarities, to get a sense of some of our differences and the beauties that live under both of those categories. And Mariana, when I said I felt much, I learned much, I was able to participate in much more than I could expect. It was amazing, lessons about community, and hospitality. People on the road were more welcoming than they needed to be. I learned about the power of compassion. When I think about compassion is this realization, this appreciation that we're all on the human journey together, right? And some may say human suffering, so to speak. We're on this sort of human struggle together. So what becomes important is the sharing of each other's strengths and the lessening of each other's loads. And when I think about passion, really is also, I look to that word passion, which means suffering. So compassion means suffering with. As a physical therapist, I'm always thinking about that word as we step into the room or into a clinic or a small town with a client. We're going into these places of pain and possibility. And in those places, compassion may be brought. And maybe the last thought that I'll share for now on some of the things that I experienced, and I can share some stories, but one of the lessons that I experienced, Mariana, is the power of touch. It's the power of touch. I would go to some of these communities. I was going to a lot of underserved communities. About 5 months of my time was either teaching or setting up clinics in communities that maybe didn't have physiotherapy set up. And I would treat these people who had never had a physical therapist at all engage with them and touch their hurts and ask them, where does it hurt and how does it hurt and when, and promise them we're going to do our best to figure out why. And then you'll see these moments when you're just present and made eye contact and engaged and utilized that touch. It was the beginning of transformation. Now, I had already knew that in practice for some years, but something about it was magnified when you saw somebody else engaging with that setting for the first time.
That's so cool. And I bet like you experience a lot of different cultures and PT cultures as well. You said that you went to like underserviced areas, but I bet like comparing PT in Brazil and the US, I already feel it's very different. So I just imagine like the experience that you had, seeing different ways of treating, different ways of touching, culture, how do you treat? So I was just curious to hear a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things about that, engaging with what I like to say is my brothers and sisters of the profession, physios in different countries, is everybody is striving, right, to be their best clinician, whether it's in Nashville or Chicago or New York or Nicaragua, Brasilia, wherever it is, everybody's striving. So one of the things that I enjoyed the most was the learning from each other. When I would go to some places, I'd be watching, I'd be learning, how are you thinking about this? What technique and intervention would you do with this? And it would also be one of my favorite things to share, my perspective and my style and my technique. There's different styles and paradigms, in different countries. One community may use modalities in a certain way. Community may use exercise in a certain way. One community may use their hands or manual therapy in a certain way, or a combination of, But what I saw, what was always inspiring me, everybody was looking at their patient in front of them, the best of what I saw, looking at their patient in front of them, understanding their skills, understanding their resources, and trying to do the best for that client in front of them. And that's physio, that's healthcare at the best. And then what becomes, I think, unique is that we could create these spaces for cross-pollination conversations between the person from Boston and Brasilia, the person from New York and Nigeria and Nicaragua, to talk about ways that we can uplift the profession together.
That's awesome. And so how did your idea of starting PT Day of Service happen? It was through this trip. So what is the story behind PT Day of Service?
Yeah, it was specifically in this trip. It was in month 4 of the trip. I was in Peru, specifically Iquitos, Peru. And Iquitos, Peru is on the Amazon River, and you could only access it by boat or by plane. And I was doing some work with an organization there, and community health work. And this one day, doing some community health work, I remember it visually. I'm seeing it as I think and as I share it. Mariana, I was on this boat on the Amazon River. And on our way, as we're going on our way to the service site that we're going to be doing some work in, this idea that had been in the back of my mind for some time suddenly shot to the front of my mind. And the idea was this: what if we challenge students, staff, clinicians of the physiotherapy profession around the corner and around the world to do an act of service on the same day, some sort of act of service on the same day, wherever they were? And then what if we challenge or ask those same people to share the moments had and the connections made online on social media, what became the hashtag PTDLS? Started to cultivate that question. What might it mean for the bonds within our profession, like we're just talking about just now, the connectivity? Oh, what's going on in Norway? What's going on in Tokyo, Indonesia? What might those mean for the bonds? And what might that mean for the brand and the representation of our profession to the world? As you can imagine, I was very, very excited. So throughout the whole day, even throughout the project, it was knocking on the door. As soon as I got back to where we were based out of, I emailed one of my colleagues, Josh, and it was just a pure, innocent, unsure of itself idea, early on idea. And he had a very great response. He goes, Efosa, not only do we have to do this, we can't not do this. This is something, let's go for it. And it really, it was the beginning of the idea. And then we reached out that first year. We built a team of 10 people from across the world, really. And we had this idea that said, if just us 10 serves on this day, because the idea is local service for a global effect, serving locally in a ripple way. If just 10 of us serve, and maybe some of our friends that are trying to be nice also serve with us, that would be a success. On that first year, Mariana, we had 28 countries participate, and all 50.
Oh,
in all 50.
That's so cool.
And then it has subsequently grown. We went from 28 countries to 42 countries to 55 to 57. We took a little bit of a dip during the pandemic, but it's been pretty special.
That's so cool. And so what is the mission behind? You're just trying to serve people that don't have access to PT, or any type of people?
Yeah, there's maybe a few pillars to it. One is the power of service, and service is not charity. Service is engaging in a way that betters your environment with humility and openness and trust and collaboration. That's what we see service as. So serving in a way, redefining service, but serving in a way that leads to better, and doing it locally. When people think of service, they think they have to hop on a plane, to go change the world. No, there's times you may travel across that may be needed, or you may aspire to do that, but there's so much that can be done in your backyard. So one of the essence that we talk about is local service for a global effect. If many people are serving locally wherever they are, that has a global effect. So that's one. And the other idea is, which ties into, which I'll talk about a nonprofit later, but together, is to transform through movement. Early on, the idea was, service in any way. And that's still the idea. It could be painting a park bench or baking cakes, whatever. That's very random. I don't think anybody done it, but any way that you feel called to and that your community needs, in a way that's also responsible and sustainable. As we progressed, we've been gearing the service activities to be more. It was always there, but even more focused on movement and show how movement can really be transformative, in a community. And there's been different things. Mariana, people have set up 5Ks. People have built ramps for wheelchair accessibility. People have cleaned up parks and painted parks, which is important. Better environment for free movement and spaces and things of that nature. People have done things that we couldn't have actually imagined. And even in that, especially in that, specifically in that, has been so much inspiration.
That's very nice. And so what are the types of projects that you offer, like through the PT Day of Service? So it's basically like PTs treating people? Is that, or is more to that, just summarizing?
Yeah. Good question. Similar to what I just said, we like to give people the mantra of, as much as possible, be responsible in how you serve. And then if there's any sustainable effects that can be had, gear for that, And then early on, like I said, we kept it very open. It's still relatively open. But the question is asking the question, what does your community need? And what do you feel called to do? That also dances in that place of responsibility and service. So some people, to your question, have done screens. They've set up these movement screening days that they offer for free. Show up to this place and we'll do an FMS or a movement screen. Or some people have done movement classes or Tai Chi. Some people have done quick physical therapy assessments. Some people have done free bike fittings or discounted bike fittings and things of that nature. Like we said, people have painted bikes and built bike ramps. The thing to be done is based on what your local community needs. We also provide resources of ideas of things, of organizations that people could collaborate with to do stuff. We provide resources of ideas of things that have been done to the past. But we really empower people to ask and assess the needs and to aim based on what they find, based on the answers.
Yeah. And I'm sure there is a process for a PT to join. So if anyone is interested, like what they have to do to join, how can they join the program?
I love it. I have a feeling this podcast is global. So this is good. Everybody, whether you're Brazil and Estados Unidos or Nigeria, hey, listen up. Okay, so one of the things we could do is go to ptdayofservice.com. ptdayofservice.com. That's the website, and then that's the handle pretty much on all social media, Twitter, Instagram, and things of that nature. But on the website, going to ptdayofservice.com, you'll have a place where you can sign up to pledge. And the important thing about pledging, it allows us to track a little bit some of our numbers of who's participating. And it also allows us to catalyze and develop a relationship with each person and send them resources and support and things of that nature. So you can pledge to participate. And also what we've set up is the ability to become an ambassador as well. An ambassador takes a little bit more responsibility. They're often the one coordinating a project and bringing people together locally where they are, and helping to track some things, and then also reporting some of the things that may have been done, whether it was a supply drive for canned goods or mobility aids and things of that nature. And then also on our website, we also have this map that shows some projects that may be going on in your country and your state, all the way down to your city. So that by engaging with us on social media, by engaging with us on our website and pledging, it really provides you the resource to serve responsibly.
That's cool. I was checking the map. I saw that Brazil had one spot in Northeast, I think.
Okay, we got to get it to South Brazil as well. There's some good people in South Brazil.
Yeah, I heard that. And when people sign up on the website, is more just to communicate, or just like so people are aware of what other people are doing, or is there any discussion about should we do this, should we do that, or is more like up to the therapist? Or do you have anything? You said that you provide maybe some resources or some help. How does that work?
Great question. And we're looking to develop more and more forums in which people who are serving can communicate with each other. We're this year even more so, we want to really cultivate and create more conversation in social media, doing highlights and spots. So some people are interested in this, they can reach out to us at info@ptdfservice.com, getting their stories of what they've done in the past or what they're thinking about doing now, or if they have some questions. We're looking to create more current conversation. But to your original question, so the website is a good place. What pledging does, again, develops that relationships, and then we'll be sending you updates, timeline, resources about all that we've learned in the last 7 to 8 years that can make your job, your project as frictionless and as smooth as possible. So that's one of the great things that the pledging and the signing up officially does. You know, the resource, the information, the map, connection with us. And then there's always ways to engage in real time and with others on our social media platform, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and things of that nature. So yeah.
Awesome. And the PT Day of Service is part of the Move Together, correct?
Yes.
Is one of the services. So you said that Move Together was more about movement in general. So what is exactly the Move Together, and how does it work, and what is inside that project? And I know they have a few things inside that Move Together platform that I was checking on your website.
You've done your research, Mariana. You did your research.
I did some.
Buenísimo. So PT Day of Service is a program. As interestingly enough, PT Day of Service came first. Came in 2015. Move Together is an organization, a 501c3. A common term that is used is nonprofit. I like to say for impact organization. 501c3, high purpose for impact organization. So Move Together is sort of the umbrella organization. PT Day of Service is one of our flagship programs, and in some ways a flagship program among other programs under Move Together. So they're both, and they're evolving in a way which I'll explain next, in which they're both certainly about movement, and they're becoming reconciled in very tangible ways, which I'm excited to share. So what is Move Together? The story of Move Together, first of all, Mariana, I was in Guatemala. I've spent a lot of time in Guatemala. I've been living in Guatemala for the last several years. Mi esposa es de Guatemala. You know, so I have a lot of love and connection to that country and to Central America. Interesting history, beautiful culture, wonderful people. I was traveling there in 2015. 2015. It was after my traveling around the world. I had went there for a project in a place called 𝐓𝐴𝐺𝐵𝐴𝐴, Guatemala, to work with an organization, a foundation there. In the midst of that time, I took a quick trip to my favorite lake in the world, a place called Lake 𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐴, Lago 𝐴𝐵𝐴𝐴, for just some refreshments and reflecting and writing. I think I may have wrote some poetry, as I want to do it sometimes. And this one night, Mariana, it's nighttime, it's 9 p.m., it's a full moon up, and I go to the street vendor overlooking the lake, and I decide to get some food. So I sit down. I think I got some chorizo and queso or whatever. So I sit down, I order my meal, and I start eating. And as I'm eating, this man, and who I came to understand and find out was his daughter, also come down. They order food, and they sit down, and we start talking. Good conversation and all that. You know, he spoke mainly a Mayan language, 𝐏𝐶, primarily, and some Spanish. And the daughter spoke Spanish and English. So she was a fun go-between for the both of us, with my little bit of Spanish and, of course, English. And at some point in the conversation, they found out I was a physical therapist. And Mariana, when they found out I was a physical therapist, their face just lit up. And I said to myself, I wish everybody reacted like this and lit up like this when they found out I was a physical therapist. It was a few moments later that I found out why. They weren't only traveling by themselves, this father and daughter. They were also traveling with the wife/mother. And they shared with me that their husband's wife, she had twisted her knee up while they were doing this, traveling throughout the country, and wrenched up and twisted her knee very bad. And since then, she hadn't been able to enjoy the trip. It was rinsed up. It was pain. She was pretty bedridden for some time. And they go, Efosa, and they will call me by my first name at this point. Go, Efosa, do you mind coming to our hotel room to see how and we could actually see the hotel from where we are. It was at the corner. The town we were in was in San Pedro in the lake. And I said, of course, I'll come on. I said, just let me finish my meal and then we'll go up together. So we walk up to the hotel room, and I start assessing the wife, the mother. You know, a lot of swelling, a lot of stiffness, a lot of pain, and protective mechanism was kicking in. I did some things, some patella mobilizations, some passive range of motion. I taught her some bed mobility, some progressive leg loading, and things of that nature. And I think we may even got into some light gait, maybe. The most important thing that I hope I did, I try to educate them and empower them how to manage the inflammation and the pain, some activities that they could do and monitor in a progressed way, some things to consider, and maybe some resources they could find as they were traveling. And then we hugged. Maybe there were some tears, maybe. And then we said goodbye. And then we shared information. It's a fun history, an interesting history to share and recount, Mariana. But what was on my mind that night and in the days and nights that came, and even my mind right now, of course, what was on my mind was that woman's husband and daughter had to randomly bump into me at the lake, at a food vendor, to have a clinician or person or physio, like we were talking about before, touch her hurts and ask her where and how and when and why. And that is a pain point, right? That is a pain point right there. I sometimes think about the story about the Good Samaritan. How the early people ask themselves the question, if I stop to help this person, what would happen to me? And then the third person, the Good Samaritan, says, really, I'm summarizing and extrapolating, but the decision that he made is, if I don't stop to help this person, what would happen to them or what will not happen for them? And in this realm of community health and service, that is a question we have to ask. I said to myself, that is a pain point. There's many people that would benefit from physical health, physical therapy, rehab, and movement health and optimization that will benefit from it that don't have the access. So that led to the founding of Move Together. And a lot of the philosophy can be found in our name, Move Together. We're in the realm of physical therapy. Movement is what it's all about, right? When our organization thinks about movement, the way we think about movement is one of the oldest and closest sort of essentials in our life, right? It's with us from the very beginning and throughout. And it really dictates how we engage with the world and how the world engages with us. How we run, how we play, how we dance, how we love, how we live. And then each person certainly has their own movement, signature, and style. What becomes beautiful and important when we're able to maximize our movement, signature, and style and capacity, we're able to maximize our lives. And that is a humanistic right as much as I'm concerned. So that's why movement is central to our name, is central to everything that we do. When we talk about Move Together, it speaks to our mindset. When we're participating in a project, to making sure that we're not being jingoistic, or we're not having that mindset that all that is West is best and that we know everything. No. Whenever we're doing a project, whether it's around the corner and around the world, 3 questions. Question number 1, when we enter into a community or engage with the community before an entry. Question number 1, are we welcome? Are we welcome in this community? And ask that question first and wait for the answer and be ready to be guided by whatever the answer is. Question number 2, in your own community in which you live and experience 24/7, what do you see as some of the challenges in your community? What do you see as some of the opportunities in your community? All in that same space. And then listen to what you hear. Question number 3, what do you see as some of the ways that those challenges may be overcome and transcended? What do you see as some of the ways and those opportunities may be fulfilled? So first you're asking, you're observing, you're listening. And then you could catalyze and curate some ideas and then bring it together. And then the ideas that we move together, hence the name, to effectuate positive change in the community. So that's really our paradigm. Our mission now, it's evolved. That we had a former mission, which was to increase access to quality rehab medicine around the corner, around the world. Access being integral to that in a multidimensional way. Our mission now is a little more streamlined, but it will include a lot of the things that we were doing before, is transformation through movement health. Transformation through movement health. And some of our programs is PTDF services, which we talked about, local service for a global effect. We have another program that's primarily focused in the United States called the Pro Bono Incubator Program. The Pro Bono Incubator Program, in which we provide grants to NGOs and pro bono clinics in the U.S. And I always like to take the time to make sure people appreciate the whole term of pro bono. Pro bono is not just pro bono. The full term is pro bono publica. It means for the public good. You know, people think about pro bono just means free. No, the full term is pro bono publica, for the public good. So I always like to take the time to talk that out. So we provide grants. Over the last 6 years, we provided $50,000 to about 25 entities in the U.S. And the average grant is $1,000 or $2,000 per entity. And in the scheme of grants, that's not the largest, you know. But what we've come to appreciate is that when it's the first grant for an organization or entity or a clinic, it helps them get their second grant and then their third grant. So it becomes almost like seed funding in some ways, which we're very glad about. So that's the second program. So first is PTF service, two is Pro Bono Incubator, and the third one is a clinic development program, and that's a global one. In that one, we collaborate with the municipalities and alcaldes, mayors in towns and pueblos and cities and different places. Our projects have primarily been in Guatemala, of which we've rehabbed buildings to operationalize them and set them up to be physio clinics, or we've actually constructed alongside towns and town leaders and clinicians and patients. We've constructed from the ground up clinics and then worked with towns to operationalize so that it becomes run by local folks, right? Local capacity by those who are local. There's a time lapse that I could share with you, Mariana, that you can make a link wherever we post this. It's a minute time lapse that shows the building of a clinic in Villanueva, Guatemala, the second most populous city in Guatemala.
That's so cool. We're going to make sure to put that on the show notes so people can just go and take a look. That's awesome. And I see one more thing on your Move Together website. What is the Catalyst Club? Is that how you say it?
Yes. So that's a program that it's in development, and the whole idea of that program is a critical mass. You know, so for those and a term and a principle that's important for us as an organization, Mariana, is this term called bidirectionality. You know, the way I think about bidirectionality when I think about service is being fulfilled, and hopefully this is not just service, is how people feel in their profession and their vocation. Being fulfilled in the work that you're doing while fulfilling others and fulfilling an objective for your company and your work, you know. So it's okay to enjoy what you do, you know, while also getting things done, right? You know, so the critical mass, the Catalyst Club, is to create a space for folks in which service speaks to them and our mission may speak to them, that per their passions and per their bandwidth and their time availabilities, they could join us in our mission, whether it's doing our overseas projects or helping us with research or doing fundraising, whatever it is, they could join us in this journey of transformation through movement health.
That's so cool. I think it's awesome that you're doing that, and we just all need more people doing these global initiatives that, as you said, is local and have this global impact. So just to spread the word and have people joining from different countries, like, for example, Brazil, that I'm sure has a lot of need and a lot of PTs and so big. And hopefully you start something and it grows more and more. So I think that's the goal of sharing this information. So I appreciate you talking with us about that.
One of the things that's been on my radar, and I have to write it down so I look to operationalize it, that I may start doing in the years to come, is I usually serve in a different place each year. You know, mainly where I'm living. One of the things that I keep on my radar is to travel to a new country each year to serve alongside them. You know, so it may be Brazil,
That's a cool goal.
Could revisit. So we could, if anybody's listening to this, they could email anywhere in the world if there's an invitation or for me to come join them for a weekend. I'll bring myself and maybe another team member, and we'll be able to go deeper in some of the movement health initiatives in their country. So I'm looking to make that one of the traditions of the organization. We'll see what the first country is.
Yeah, that's very cool. A cool goal. You do both things, getting to know a new place and doing something nice for the community. So it's pretty cool. Before we jump to the final questions, do you have anything else to add about what we were just talking about?
No, I thank you so much for those questions that you asked. It allows me the opportunity to share something I'm very passionate about, something that I hope can reach many places in a diverse set of ways. So that's it. It's really an invitation for those who feel called to service. There's different organizations doing different things in our profession and in other healthcare professions. You know, I always encourage people to research different professions, different organizations, see the ones that speak to you, engage with them. I moved together. A colleague of mine leads an organization called 𝐓𝐴𝐷. There's, of course, there's an organization called Hearts in Motion I used to do some projects with. There's a whole host of organizations. I could probably send some links to some ideas. Really research some different organizations, see how their values may relate with you. And then if one feels called to, and this is something I could probably also share deeper as we close down, but I really want to be encouraging people to think beyond the clinic walls. So much of what we do is within the clinic walls and the classroom walls and the hospital walls, and that's great. That's a lot of where our essence is. But one of the things that's on my heart is really encouraging people to reimagine the profession, their professional journey as we reimagine the profession. How can we think beyond the clinic walls to engage in our communities, in service, in consultation, in leadership on a civic level? Is it preparing more safe and open spaces for movement and for health? Is it doing classes in parks and things of that nature? I think it would be bi-directional. I think more people would be fulfilled in doing that, which is one. And I think it will lead to transformation and more scalable health where people live.
Very cool. And now transition to the final questions. What is your favorite resource of information? Is there anything in particular that you like?
Resource of information. There's so many different things. There's a lot of great stuff on LinkedIn. So I engage and follow with some different people on LinkedIn. That's one. I sign up for different newsletters, business newsletters that I love. One is hustle.co. One is the Morning Brew. So those are more business oriented.
Mm-hmm.
On the healthcare front, there's some different podcasts there's a newsletter that I love called The Fit Insider. There's The Drive with 𝐓𝐴𝐷. He's a physician that is really great. Talks a lot about WellSpan and HealthSpan, living long and well. Great stuff. The Drive by 𝐓𝐴𝐷. Chris Stout has Tools for Change, which is a great newsletter. Another good podcast that I haven't actually really started all that much yet, but another good podcast that's on my radar is Second Opinion by Bill Frist. He's a physician, former senator and Senate Majority Leader in the U.S. Senate. I like how his mind works, highly talented man. So there's so many things out there, podcasts, newsletters, and things of that nature. And that's where I take in a lot of my, I get in at least some information, and maybe I'll sneak something else in, especially for young professionals. A book that I read when I was a student that has been foundational and influential for me in my professional career is not a healthcare book. It's a people book and a leadership book, How to Win Friends and Influence Others by Dale Carnegie. And I think is important for clinicians. Things like eye contact, saying a person's name well. Before this podcast, Mariana made sure she could pronounce my name well, which I appreciate. Like those little things go a long way in making the other person feel seen. And specifically in our profession or in the clients that we're seeing that are in pain or suffering, and then they have seen some other professionals that are sometimes rushed, only are able to see them, a patient for 10 minutes. in our profession where we oftentimes at our best could see our clients for longer, 30, 45, 60 minutes, making them feel seen, staying with them, journeying with them before you give them an exercise, before you place a modality, before you put your hands on them, that the transformation has begun.
So I think you already answered my second question. The best advice would you give to clinicians that are starting their careers?
Yeah, it's that idea of bringing compassion, like we talked about,
yeah,
and also empathy. And the way I define empathy is seeing to recognize and also seeking to understand.
And final question, what personal qualities or abilities that you think are important to become a successful PT? You already mentioned some, yeah.
Yeah, I think I answered all of the first one, all that I said.
Yeah.
But if we're talking, so some of what I was talking about is a lot of the soft skills, maybe more concretized skills. What's soft skills are no less important than anything else. They may be the most important thing. But if we're talking about more concretized things, is your observational skills. So I'm going to use the word see, the ability to recognize and notice. What's the first rib doing? What's the intelligent gait? Where their Trendelenburg? And things of that nature. What's their postural presentation? So it's the ability to observe and the ability to be based on the information you're taking to analyze and utilize it in a way that has utility and is protective for the interventions that may come and the empowerment that may come. So really, and you can just start practicing that, like people watching at the airport or in the street and things of that nature. Working your observational skills, and then even an extension, start saying what might that mean. What may be the root of a asymmetry or dysfunction that I'm recognizing.
Very cool. Well, Efosa, really appreciate your time and you being here to share with us all your wonderful experience, all your great projects. Thank you so much for everything you do for our profession. And hopefully you can spread the word and more people will listen and feel called and join and help our community in different ways, as you mentioned. So I'm very glad that you accepted my invitation, so we have this opportunity to share with other people. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for this invitation. It was a great sharing time with you, Mariana. Thank you to everybody that's checking in.